Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dig in.
Well, today we're going way back to 1932. We're looking at a military history textbook, and the author might surprise you.
Oh, let me guess. Some obscure Prussian general.
Not quite. It was written by Juan Perón.
Perón. Wow, the Argentinian president.
The very same. Of course, this was decades before his political career. This text gives us a glimpse into his thinking during his time as a military officer.
That's a fascinating perspective. I mean, most people know him for his later political life, but his military background is crucial to understanding his worldview.
Absolutely. And you could really see the influence of some major historical figures in this book. I mean, we're talking Alexander the Great, Hannibal, Julius Caesar.
Grown hitters of military history.
Perón seems to think they're essential reading for anyone who wants to lead. He even says, and I quote, "To be a good leader of armies, it is essential to know military history."
It's a pretty bold statement.
It is. But was this a common belief back then? Or was Perón ahead of his time?
Well, you have to remember that military education in the early 20th century was often very rigid, focused on rote memorization, formations, regulations, that sort of thing.
There's a lot of room for critical thinking.
Exactly. But Perón was pushing for something much deeper. He believed that learning from the past, from both the successes and failures of those who came before, was absolutely crucial.
It's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Right. And Perón takes it a step further. He argues that it's actually more efficient, less costly, in terms of lives lost, than learning from your own mistakes on the battlefield.
I can see his point. Experience is the best teacher, but it doesn't have to be your experience.
Precisely. And he wasn't just talking about reading dry accounts of battles. He advocated for a balance between theory and practice.
Interesting. So how did that play out in his approach to teaching?
Well, this textbook was designed specifically for students in a military education setting.
Okay, makes sense.
But his approach was far from traditional.
Oh, now you've got me intrigued. What did he do differently?
Perón actually believes students shouldn't be spending their class time taking notes.
Really? That's pretty unconventional.
He wanted them to come to class already familiar with the basic concepts. That way they could use class time for deeper discussions and analysis.
So it's almost like a flipped classroom model way before that was a thing.
Exactly. He was a real innovator in that sense.
It sounds like he really wanted to make sure his students actually thought about the material, not just regurgitate facts.
Precisely. He was trying to instill a more critical thinking approach to military education.
It makes you wonder how his students reacted to that. It must have been quite a change from the norm.
I'm sure it was. But it speaks to Perón's forward-thinking approach. And this emphasis on critical thinking is evident in how he tackles the evolution of warfare itself. He doesn't just present a collection of famous battles. He shows how warfare has fundamentally transformed over time. From those small-scale conflicts to this idea of the nation at arms.
So he saw the bigger picture, how technology, society, even nationalism itself completely changed the game. What stood out to you about his analysis of this shift?
Well, one thing that struck me was how Perón saw this shift from war as primarily a military affair to a total societal endeavor. It's not just armies clashing on a field, it's entire populations mobilized, resources redirected, industry churning out war material.
Oh, total transformation.
And this, according to Perón, had profound implications for leadership.
Of course. I mean, if the entire nation is involved, the stakes are just that much higher.
Right. And the leaders need a different skill set to manage that.
That makes sense. But wasn't this concept of the nation at arms already in play during, say, the Napoleonic Wars?
It was emerging, yeah. But Perón really saw it as a defining feature of modern warfare, particularly after the French Revolution. The scale and impact were unprecedented, and this meant leaders couldn't just be skilled tacticians anymore. They had to be able to inspire and motivate entire populations, manage complex logistics, and grapple with the economic and social consequences of, well, a total war effort.
A whole new level of responsibility.
Absolutely.
But for Perón, all of this, the evolution of warfare, the challenges of leadership, it all comes back to those key figures from history, right? Alexander, Hannibal, Caesar.
Absolutely. He uses them to illustrate the timeless principles of warfare.
Interesting. So he's drawing parallels between ancient history and modern warfare.
He is. And he wasn't just praising their victories either. He dissects their mistakes, their miscalculations. He shows how even the most brilliant minds can falter.
So he's not afraid to show their flaws.
Sure,
That's
sure.
refreshing. Most military history tends to gloss over those aspects, just focusing on the triumphs.
I think that's what makes Perron's work so compelling. He believed that to truly learn from the past, you have to understand the whole picture. He was particularly fascinated by how these leaders navigated the complex interplay between political objectives and military strategy.
Because war isn't fought in a vacuum, right? It's always
Yeah.
tied to some larger political goal. But how much emphasis did Perón put on diplomacy? Surely that plays a role too.
Oh, absolutely. He dedicates a significant portion of the text to it. He argues that smart military leaders don't just plan for battles, they understand the global chessboard. Diplomacy, alliances, securing advantages before war even breaks out, that was all crucial to him.
So it's about thinking several moves ahead, like a grandmaster.
Exactly. And when Perón delves into these specific leaders, it really brings this point home. Take Alexander the Great. I mean, obviously he's got those legendary conquests. But what Perón really highlights is Alexander's adaptability.
I can see why that would appeal to Perón, especially given his own focus on the ever-changing nature of warfare. But wasn't Alexander known for his, well, kind of reckless charges?
Yeah.
How does that fit with adaptability?
Well, it's not about being cautious. It's about recognizing the strengths and weaknesses of your forces and your enemy's forces.
Ah, got it.
Perón points to the Battle of Gaugamela. Alexander's facing the Persian king, Darius III, on this wide-open plain. It was basically perfect for those Persian chariot tactics.
Yeah, you'd think a commander would be tempted to just meet that force head on, right?
Most would, but not Alexander. He knew a direct clash would be a disaster. So instead, he used his cavalry to outmaneuver the Persians, creating openings for his infantry to exploit.
So he didn't play Darius's game. He changed the game entirely.
Exactly.
That's impressive. It takes a lot of tactical awareness to pull that off. It reminds me of another leader known for his strategic brilliance, Hannibal. What did Perón find so compelling about his leadership?
Hannibal, especially at Cannae, embodies Perón's belief in maximizing limited resources. I mean, he was outnumbered by the Romans, but through meticulous planning and cunning maneuvers, well, he pulled off one of the most stunning victories in military history.
Cannae is still studied in military academies today. I remember trying to wrap my head around it back in school. What was it about that battle that made it so brilliant?
Hannibal essentially lured the Romans into a trap. He feigned a retreat, drew them into this crescent formation, and then his flanking forces closed in, surrounding and just annihilating the Roman army.
Wow. Just listening to you describe it, it sounds chaotic.
It was a masterpiece of tactical execution. But of course, Perón goes beyond just the mechanics of the battle.
Right. There's always a deeper layer with Perón. What else did he see in Hannibal's leadership?
Perón recognized that Hannibal understood psychological warfare, the use of surprise, deception, even calculated terror. These weren't just tactics, they were tools to demoralize the enemy.
To break their will before the battle even began.
Exactly.
It's like he was playing chess while his opponents were playing checkers.
And this mastery of the psychological aspect of war ties directly into Perón's emphasis on the link between political objectives and military strategy. He saw those as inseparable.
Right. War is ultimately a tool to achieve a political goal. You can win every battle, but you can still lose the war if your strategy isn't aligned with your overall objective. Which of the leaders that Perón studied really exemplified this best, in his view?
Julius Caesar is a prime example. I mean, obviously, his military campaigns were always in service of his political ambitions. But Perón points out that Caesar's success wasn't just about brute force. It was his political savvy, securing alliances, outmaneuvering rivals, consolidating power through these carefully calculated moves.
It's like he was always thinking several steps ahead, both on and off the battlefield.
Exactly.
So Perón is reminding us that successful military leadership isn't just about tactics on the battlefield. It's about understanding the bigger picture, the political landscape, the power dynamics at play. It's almost like a game within a game.
And that understanding is crucial for setting realistic objectives, developing a strategy that's aligned with those objectives, and ultimately achieving a lasting victory.
But as warfare itself evolves, as Perón so clearly lays out in this book, these objectives, the very nature of conflict, changes too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Perón traces this whole evolution from ancient battles, fought with swords and shields, to modern warfare dominated by technology, the development of gunpowder, the rise of professional armies, the increasing impact of technology. He saw these as key turning points, things that completely reshaped the way wars are fought.
He wasn't just interested in individual battles or leaders. He was looking at those larger trends, the forces that drive change on the battlefield. Which brings us back to that concept of the nation at arms. He saw that as this defining feature of modern warfare.
Precisely. It's not just about professional soldiers anymore. It's about entire populations mobilized for the war effort. Industry repurposed, resources redirected. This, for Perón, represented a fundamental shift in the nature of war and in war's impact on society.
So the scale expands, the stakes are raised, the consequences are felt far beyond the actual battlefield. And for Perón, this obviously had major implications for leadership.
It's not just about leading an army, it's about leading a nation. You need to be able to inspire and motivate entire populations, manage the complexities of a war economy, grapple with the social and political ramifications of total war.
It's like a whole different ballgame.
Exactly.
And this changes the very objectives of war itself, right?
Right. In the past, wars were often fought for, like, limited territorial gains or dynastic disputes. But with the rise of nationalism and mass mobilization, wars become more ideological. They're fought for these grander goals, things like national survival or the spread of political ideologies.
So the stakes are higher, the scope is wider, the impact is deeper. And this, according to Perón, requires a different kind of leader.
Someone who understands the complex interplay of military power, political ideology, and societal mobilization.
He's suggesting that the modern military leader needs to be more than just a skilled tactician or even a charismatic general. They need to be strategic thinkers, politically savvy, and adept at managing the complexities of this total war effort. But Perón wasn't just focused on that grand scale, was he? Didn't he also dive into the practicalities of preparing for this new kind of warfare?
He absolutely did. That's where his background as a military instructor really shines through. He goes beyond the theoretical and outlines a blueprint for success in this new era of conflict. And it all starts with recognizing that modern warfare requires a society to be fully mobilized, not just its military.
So it's about more than just having, like, a large and well-equipped army.
Much more. Perón emphasizes logistical planning, efficient resource management, and a robust industrial capacity. These, he argues, are the backbone of any successful war effort.
It's like building a house. You need a solid foundation before you can even start thinking about putting up walls.
Yeah.
So you can have the best army in the world, but if you can't keep them supplied, equipped, and moving, you're not going to win.
Precisely. And this links back to his emphasis on that coordination between the political and military spheres. Perón envisions this system where political objectives are clearly defined, and the military is given the resources and authority to develop a strategy that can achieve those objectives.
So it's about creating a shared vision, a unity of purpose, making sure everyone is pulling in the same direction.
And within the military itself, Perón stresses the importance of effective training and organization. A well-structured chain of command, standardized procedures, rigorous training programs. He saw this as essential for creating a cohesive and effective fighting force.
So it's not enough to just have brave soldiers. You need to train them, equip them, and organize them into this well-oiled machine. And this ties back into his emphasis on leadership. He argues that effective leaders are essential at all levels of the military, from the squad leader all the way up to the general in command. Because even with the best training and equipment, you still need someone to make decisions, inspire the troops, and adapt to the ever-changing chaos of the battlefield.
Absolutely.
And I imagine in this new era of total war that Perón saw the qualities of a successful leader as going beyond just those traditional military skills.
Oh, absolutely. He recognized that the increasing complexity of warfare demanded leaders who could think critically, adapt to new technologies, and navigate the political and social dimensions of conflict. He saw the need for leaders who could operate effectively in this world where the lines between war and peace were becoming increasingly blurred.
Perón was painting a picture of a future where warfare would be more complex, more demanding, and require this new breed of leader. Someone who could not only master the art of war, but also understand its broader implications and navigate the political and social currents that shaped it.
And this brings us to a crucial question that Perón really grapples with. How do you prepare for this future of warfare? How do you train leaders who can not only win battles, but also understand this complex interplay of factors that determines victory in this new era?
It's a question that has resonated throughout history, and it's one that we're still grappling with today. So how did Perón propose you approach this challenge? Perón was laying out a pretty tall order there. How do you even begin to prepare for this kind of multifaceted, constantly evolving form of warfare?
Well, for Perón, the first step was recognizing that preparation goes beyond just building a bigger army or developing more advanced weapons.
Okay, so what else is there?
It's about fostering this societal mindset that understands the true nature of modern warfare and a society that's prepared to make the sacrifices necessary for success.
So it's not just about military strength, it's about national resilience, this shared understanding that everyone has a role to play. But how do you actually cultivate that kind of mindset in an entire population?
Perón believed that education was key.
Education.
Yeah. Citizens needed to understand the historical context of warfare, the sacrifices it demanded, and the potential consequences of failure. He saw this as essential for building a society that was, well, both willing and able to support a sustained war effort.
So it's not just about drilling soldiers, it's about educating the entire populace, creating this culture of preparedness. But wasn't this kind of thinking already, prevalent in the early 20th century?
Especially leading up to World War I.
It was emerging, yeah. But Perón took it a step further. He argued that this education couldn't just be about patriotic slogans or glorifying past victories.
Right. It had to be more than just propaganda.
It had to be grounded in this realistic understanding of the costs and complexities of modern warfare. He wanted citizens to grasp the logistical challenges, the economic sacrifices, and even the potential social disruptions that come with a total war effort.
He was trying to prepare them for the harsh realities, not just the romanticized version of war.
It's a sobering message, but I can see why he felt it was so necessary. But Perón also emphasized the importance of technological innovation, right? I mean, you can't talk about modern warfare without addressing the role of technology.
Absolutely. He recognized that technology was this driving force in the evolution of warfare. And he believed that nations needed to invest in research and development to stay ahead of their adversaries.
It's an arms race, in a sense.
It is. He saw it as crucial for maintaining a technological edge on the battlefield.
So you need a strong industrial base to produce those cutting-edge weapons. But technology is only part of the equation, right? You still need the soldiers themselves, the human element.
Of course. Perón believed that training and discipline were absolutely essential for creating a cohesive and effective fighting force. He advocated for these rigorous training programs that emphasized both individual skills and unit tactics.
So what was he aiming for in these soldiers?
He wanted soldiers who could not only follow orders, but also think critically and adapt to changing circumstances.
He wasn't just creating automatons. He was trying to foster initiative and adaptability.
Exactly.
It sounds like he was anticipating the kind of fluid, decentralized warfare that we see today.
He was ahead of his time in that sense. He recognized that in modern warfare, decisions often need to be made very quickly and at lower levels of command. He wanted soldiers who could take initiative and operate effectively, even when they were cut off from their superiors.
So it's about empowering the individual soldier, giving them the tools and the training they need to make decisions in the heat of the moment.
And Perón believed that the shift in warfare demanded a corresponding shift in leadership as well.
How so?
He argued that modern military leaders needed to be more than just tacticians or strategists.
Look at close.
They needed to be able to motivate and inspire their troops, to foster that sense of camaraderie, of shared purpose.
So it's not just about barking orders, it's about building trust, fostering unity within the ranks. It sounds like Perón was really emphasizing the human connection, even in the midst of war, which is, inherently dehumanizing.
He believed that this connection, this sense of shared purpose, was absolutely essential for maintaining morale and sustaining a war effort over the long term. He saw it as the glue that holds a fighting force together, especially in the face of adversity.
It's easy to forget that even with all the advancements in technology, the human element is still paramount. But it's also a huge challenge for leaders, isn't it? I mean, how do you cultivate that kind of connection in an environment that's so stressful, so often traumatic?
It's a challenge that leaders have grappled with throughout history. And Perón, drawing on his experience as an instructor and his study of history, offered some insights. He emphasized the importance of clear communication, leading by example, and recognizing the individual contributions of every single soldier.
So it's about being present, being engaged, showing your troops that you care about their well-being.
And Perón believed that these leadership qualities were essential not just for winning battles, but also for mitigating the psychological toll that war takes on the individual soldier.
A reminder that even in the midst of war, we can't ignore the human cost.
Absolutely.
It seems like Perón's central message is that successful warfare in the modern era requires this holistic approach.
It does.
It's about understanding the interconnectedness of political objectives, military strategy, societal mobilization, technological innovation, and of course the human element.
He's arguing that true military strength comes not just from having a powerful army, but from having a society that's fully prepared,
Physically and mentally.
ready to wage war.
And a leadership that truly understands the complexities of this new era of conflict.
And while the specific technologies and geopolitical contexts have obviously changed since Perón wrote his book, the fundamental principles he outlines still seem relevant today.
They do.
His work transcends its historical context. It offers valuable insights, not just for military leaders, but for anyone who's grappling with the challenges of leadership in a complex and ever-changing world.
His emphasis on adaptability, on strategic thinking, and on the human element of leadership. It resonates far beyond the battlefield. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the mind of Juan Perón and his perspective on military history and leadership. Given the evolution of warfare that he describes, the challenges facing leaders today, what do you think the future holds for military leadership? What new challenges and opportunities will emerge as technology continues to reshape the battlefield? And as those lines between war and peace become even more blurred, it's something to think about. And Perón's work has definitely given us a framework for approaching these questions.
It has, and it's a conversation we need to keep having.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of military history and leadership. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.